Alrighty, folks, in this PowerPoint, we're going to look at European art and literature. And because the art and literature reflects religion, that's why we had to focus so much on Christianity earlier this week. Okay, so moving on. There we go. Art movements in Europe. So we're going to start with the 1400s and the Renaissance. If we come back to school successfully in a couple of weeks, we might be able to do this project. I don't know. But the object of the Renaissance, it glorified, meaning it made the human figure kind of supreme. If we take a look at this very famous painting by Michelangelo, God creating Adam, they're both really buff, okay? I mean, God, even though he's old and got this gray beard, he's been pumping the iron. And take a look at Adam here. He's no slouch himself. This starts in Italy. The wealthy middle class or the wealthy bankers during Renaissance Italy families started hiring artists. So the Medici was the most powerful, most influential family. They had lots and lots of money. There was a pope that was named after them. So they would hire these artists like Michelangelo, Donatello, Da Vinci, all of your Ninja Turtles. They're all Renaissance artists. Okay, and they would do tons and tons of work. And this is a statue of David. David, of course, is he's supposed to be the wimp that beats Goliath. David and Goliath from the mythical story. This statue is over 12 feet tall. David, again, looks incredibly buff. He doesn't look like a little teenage boy. And he's the one that destroys the Goliath's best. Whoops. Oh, go back. This picture, this is a sculpture. This is Mary Magdalene, a lady of lots of controversy with the New Testament and with Jesus. And this was done by Donatello. And she doesn't look very attractive, but she's done this way on purpose to reflect the sins that she has committed. It is rumored that she was a prostitute and that Jesus forgave her. And then, of course, we have the most famous painting of all, the Mona Lisa. And I believe some of our classmates have actually seen the Mona Lisa. The Mona Lisa is quite small in person. It's not a very large painting. It's painted on wood. It's also probably the most mysterious painting. What I would like you to do is, if you got your computer open at home, I want you to get up. I want you to take about 4 steps back, move to the left, and I want you to move to the right. I want you to stare at her eyes and watch her watch you. Let's do that right now. Get up, step back, move to the right, move to the left, look at her eyes. This is one of the reasons why this is one of the most famous paintings in the world. There's several other reasons. One is, who is she? We don't know exactly who she is. Another instance is, if we look at her from just the chin or nose down, she has some manly features. Her hands are rather large. We're not quite sure who she is. And then the third aspect of this famous painting is, where are we? If we look at the background, this does not represent anything in Europe. It's a mythical place. And so we're trying to establish, okay, she's dressed like an Italian Renaissance, but she's definitely not in Italy. So lots of mysteries surround the Mona Lisa. Classical music. So when we talk about art, we're not just talking about paintings and sculpture. We're also looking at music. And so the classical is our next big movement. That's from the 1730s. And our most famous two classics would be Ludwig van Beethoven and Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. I would like you at home to give each one of these links a listen. I don't know if it's going to open in Screencastify or how this is going to work. We're going to see here.
Writing's not that easy.
And now we've got a commercial. Now it's slow to load.
Sentence is grammatically correct, but it's wordy.
Skip ads. Oh, come on. Here we go. The Magic Flute Overture by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. trying to find the place where you would recognize the music. So with classical music, you have, obviously we don't have the electric guitar, right? So you have this orchestra, and with both Beethoven and Mozart, they build off of this theme. And that theme is usually it's a story or it's a picture, and the music is set to that kind of an image. But the movement or the music kind of builds. There's highs and lows, not just through volume, but through the instruments themselves. See if we can find a section that you would recognize. This part might be recognizable for some of you that are in music classes. We go check out Beethoven. He's a little bit more popular. They weren't necessarily contemporaries. They overlapped a little. I'm almost positive you've all heard of some Beethoven, even if you didn't know it was Beethoven. And again, we're patiently waiting. Hey, let's try that again. Here we go. Let's take a listen. So again, a big boom, then it's subtle, and now it builds, and it builds, and it builds. I mean, even the conductor's going nuts up here as he's moving out. He's calm, and then he's going to get hysterical again. Boom. Okay, so this is his fifth symphony. Notice it's 32 minutes long. We're not going to listen to all 32 minutes, but you have most of you probably heard this symphony in pop culture. We'll close that, and then last, his ninth. This was the famous one that rumored he was deaf when he wrote and conducted it. And we have ourselves another commercial.
School isn't a place you have to be. You want to go to school where remote learning can be as remote as you want. Like a Verbo.
Skip ads, please. Thank you. Notice this symphony is 1 hour and 13 minutes long. Remember that this was the form of entertainment in the 1700s. You couldn't go to a movie theater. You can't watch TV. It was going to operas and concerts. Okay. So if again, this may be recognizable to you in some parts. So you've got parts that are really booming, and then you got soft, subtle parts. And then if we scroll all the way to the end, the most famous part of this concert is the Ode to Joy, which is usually sung in German, if I can get to it. So it was rare that symphonies had chorus, but in Beethoven Symphony No. 9, Ode to Joy is. So again, this is the culmination or the end of the heightened piece. So we'll stop that. You can go back and rewatch or listen. But I'm more than convinced that most of you at some point in time have heard it, even though you may not recognize what it was. Okay, so moving on. Romanticism takes place in the 1800s. And this is the reaction to the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution is when a lot of factories are being built, so things are being churned out rapidly. But it's also a time of a lot of pollution because those factories are churning a lot of coal. There's very unsafe working conditions. There's really a lot of poor people. There's a lot of mutilations, because these machines are very dangerous. So you've got a lot of children working. You've got a lot of maimed limbs and parts. So there's lots of horror and tension along with all this greatness of building all this stuff. Okay. So you take that theme and you twist it with folklore and you get romanticism. Okay. The most famous, of course, is Grimm's fairy tale. And those of you who have ever been to Disney World, you understand that that is the nice, quiet version of Grimm's fairy tales. But Grimm and his brother wrote these fairy tales, and they were not very pleasant. Case in point, Cinderella's stepsister cut off her toes to try to fit into the glass slipper. Okay, Red Riding Hood, that didn't end very well. Okay, most of these fairy tales were really gruesome and not necessarily intended for kids, or if they were, it was to scare them and warn them, not some sort of Disney World experience. So in 2005, obviously the Brothers Grimm movie came out, kind of heightens the fact of who these brothers are. All right, so that's enough of that. You can go obviously look that up if you need to. We're going to be doing a little reading on some fairy tales to see how that applies to culture. Last one, almost last one. Realism, late 1800s to the 1900s. Again, this is related to the Industrial Revolution as well. But instead of taking the twist and romanticizing it with fairy tales, this is straight in your face. Let's look at the poverty. Let's look at the slums of the city. Let's look at all the poor aspects of what's going on. Let's look at life for what it really, really is. 2 literature examples by Charles Dickens. A Christmas Carol, that's the one with Scrooge. Most of you have probably seen some version of that. And then A Tale of Two Cities. Impressionism comes out a little bit later, right when the camera starts getting invented. And this is important because the camera was able to capture life. It was able to capture a specific time, a moment in time. And so artists started doing that as well. They started to try to paint in the moment. Okay, so they usually used nature, went outside, Claude Monet, Renoir, Degas. This is why I had wanted you to go outside to do your stipple, to mimic the Impressionist movement. Now, you were copying George Seurat, who was a neo-impressionist. Neo means new. Okay, so here are some examples. Again, trying to capture that moment of light and movement and color. So as she's walking and the wind is blowing. So that's why the brush strokes are very rapid and it's not very defined. Okay, again, trying to capture outside at a cafe in France. Okay, so that is Impressionism. Come on, go away. Oh, here's one by Degas. He liked to paint ballerinas. Okay, but not on stage. Notice this is the pre-stretch behind the curtains. All right, I guess. So that, my friends, is European art and literature. Okay, exit. Thank you. Stop.